Good morning. I'm Irene, Executive Director of Courage, California. I'd like to start this morning with a land acknowledgement. Courage, California acknowledges our presence on the traditional and unceded territory of hundreds of First Nations who are the traditional caretakers of this land we call California. As visitors on this land, we pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, relatives, and future generations. California is at a critical time. We are recovering from a devastating pandemic, facing a climate crisis, and struggling with a widening economic gap. And right-wing extremist leaders in other states are attacking our Black and brown, LGBTQ+, and working families. Californians and people across the United States need our elected leaders to keep leading, keep pushing for more progress to be a model for the rest of the nation. We need leaders who are willing to meet this moment with courage, with the support of the progressive majority of people in the state, and pass bold bills that ensure all Californians have clean air, clean water, good and affordable health care, quality education, and safe and vibrant neighborhoods. Right now, we don't have enough courageous leaders in Sacramento, which is why oil and gas setbacks, single-payer health care, and other important and common sense bills have died in our state legislature. That's why we're here with our partners this morning, Assemblymember Kalra and Melissa Romero of California Environmental Voters, to announce Courage California's 7th annual Courage Score. Courage Score is a tool to evaluate which California state legislators stand up for their constituents over corporate lobbyists and campaign contributors that have too much power and actively block the bold policies our communities deserve and demand. At couragescore.org, users can find scores and voting history for every California legislator. The Courage Report card features a hall of shame for members of the California legislature who are most out of step with their constituents and most loyal to corporate lobbyists instead. It also includes Courage Score All-Stars, members who are most in line with the will and values of their constituents and willing to fight the forces of corruption. It is our hope that the Courage Score released today will expose legislators who are not representing the people that put them in office, encourage Californians to hold their elected officials accountable and vote them out if necessary, and also celebrate all-stars and prove that regardless how tough a district may be, it is very possible and absolutely necessary to represent the values and will of constituents and vote with courage without giving in to corporate donors. So in terms of the Courage Score, legislators were evaluated on how they voted on the 39 toughest bills from the 2021 legislative session, selected based on a survey of over 100 progressive ally organizations, and the extent to which the legislators' voting record is an accurate reflection of the values of their constituents. A legislator is graded on the same scale no matter where they live across the state. However, they are only added to our hall of shame if they are objectively proven to be voting in a way that does not reflect the values of their district. This year, we are calling out 8 Hall of Shame legislators and celebrating 14 All-Stars. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Assemblymember Kalra, who has been an All-Star each year he's been in office and has a perfect lifetime Courage Score of 100. He has also authored 6 of the 39 bills we scored, the most of any legislator this year. Assemblymember Kalra, I want to thank you for your hard work, collaborating with community organizations, organizing your progressive colleagues, and being a champion for all of us year in and year out.
Well, thank you so much, Irene, for your leadership, and Courage California for doing the difficult work, because really accountability does take a lot of work. And when I look at this particular year, in the last couple of years really, with the COVID crisis, I oftentimes say that the pandemic has exposed a lot of underlying issues that exist in our state. I think it's also exposed a lot of elected officials as to where their values are and what they really stand for. And when I think about the expectations for this year in particular, we're actually in a very challenging moment because we have some vacancies in the legislature, and we have a lot of folks that are leaving the legislature. What that does, it offers a huge opportunity for us to transform the legislature into one that represents the progressive values of our state. The way you're able to do that, the way that we're able to do that, is by calling to account those that are serving in office. The way I like to think of it in terms of the Courage Score, it's really a way of letting constituents know what their legislator is doing when no one's watching. Because the reality is that there may be one or two bills that some constituents may have some interest in or be aware of, but they're certainly not aware of the 39 bills in total, for the most part at least. Most constituents aren't aware of the 39 different bills that really reflect whether their legislator is representing their values. And so the work that's being done is really showing what legislators are doing up here as opposed to what they're presenting in the district. I say it all the time that you'll see elected officials go to a Cesar Chavez breakfast or an MLK march, or they'll go to a women's rights rally, and then yet they'll come up here to Sacramento and vote contrary to what it is that they just espoused or spoke about at that rally that we're at or the breakfast that we're at over the weekend. And that's why this score is so important. I'm very proud of the fact that I've had a lifetime perfect score and been an all-star. It's a source of great pride, not for me alone, but for my constituents to know that I'm up here doing the work on their behalf. And I think it has a great, since the Courage Score has been unveiled, it has had an impact on how people think about how they approach bills and what they're going to vote on. What I like the best about the Courage Score is that you don't know whether a particular bill is going to be used at the time you're voting on it. And that's critically important. It's one thing to know, like, okay, well, if you vote this way or that way, you're going to be held to account in a certain manner. That is one way of impacting how a legislator may think about a vote. What we want are people that are principled and valued and don't need to think about whether they're going to be scored a certain way or not to vote the right way. And what this score does, it reflects where people are in terms of their core values, who they're actually here to represent. And so that's why I think the Courage Score is critically important. It's gained in its significance and influence, and I think especially coming into this next year, where we're going to have huge turnover in the legislature, I think it's critically important for those new legislators coming in to understand that they are going to be held accountable, that their constituents are going to know what they're doing up here. They're going to know how they're voting. They're going to know whose side they stand on. And that's why the Courage Score is so important. And that's why, frankly, I'm incredibly excited, especially as chair of the Progressive Caucus, looking at the next couple of years when we have a whole new group of legislators coming in, many of whom are campaigning on very, very progressive values and progressive platforms. For them to come up here and know that not only if they hold to those progressive values that they campaigned on, will they be doing a great service to their constituents, but they'll be rewarded for it because they'll be able to go back to their districts and say, look, the Courage Score tells you that just as I campaigned, that's how I'm legislating. And that's what I'm incredibly excited about, because I think it's going to be a whole new day in California and in this building over the next couple of years as we hold elected officials to account, and more importantly, we can be as aggressive as California needs to be to show the rest of the country how progressive values can lead a state to a much more promising future. So thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Kalra. So as Assemblymember Kalra mentioned, Courage Score has an impact in Sacramento. And so I want to speak briefly to how Courage Score also informs our work here at Courage, California, but also the work of our progressive partners. So with Courage Score, every year we take a look at what people's scores are, and that informs how we write up and recommend and endorse candidates in the state legislative races for our voter guide. For example, for this year, in the new Assembly District 44 race, Democratic incumbents Laura Friedman and Irene Nazarian are running against each other. Voters will be able to see that Assemblymember Friedman scored a 100, as she has in other years, and made our all-star list for another year, while Assemblymember Irene Nazarian scored a 76 and made our Hall of Shame list this year. With Courage Score, voters can also see which industries have supported their campaigns and if and how these contributions may have influenced their votes. Courage Score benefits our members, partner organizations, and Californians who all deserve to see the facts as they decide who to support, who to hold to account, and who to vote for. And now I want to introduce one of our closest partners, Melissa Romero, Senior Legislative Manager at California Environmental Voters. She's going to talk about how partner organizations use her score in their work as well. Melissa?
Thank you so much. The California Environmental Voters is here to continue to stand with our friends, our partners, our allies in the progressive movement to say that accountability matters, that the issues that we're fighting for, affordable and healthy housing, fair wages, benefits and dignity for all workers, access to affordable health care, a more just legal system, racial and gender justice, reproductive rights, justice for the unhoused, equality for all trans, gay, queer, and non-binary people, indigenous rights, a truly representative democracy, clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, a livable future. These things are all non-negotiables. The future that we're fighting for is intersectional, it's transformational. But these are all basic things. And we've been made to believe that asking for a livable future is unreasonable. It's too expensive, it's partisan. But we refuse to believe this lie. The lie that the super rich, the billionaire class, the most profitable corporations and polluting industries like the oil and gas industry have been feeding us over the course of history. The lie that elected officials have made a habit of repeating while they accept campaign contributions and undermine the promises they made to voters while they were running for office. We aren't asking for much. We're asking for the opportunity to a safe, healthy, and dignified life for all people. We have the power to change things, to create a better future, not just for future generations, but for us. And the people of California deserve far greater transparency than they currently get from many of their elected officials. We elect state leaders to deliver on the important issues. We're relying on them to invest in us and to vote with us in mind. And it's alarming to see some state legislators publicly speak out against efforts to hold them accountable for their actions. The ones that are on record for them as an elected official, their voting records, their campaign contributions. They want us to believe that they've got it covered. We've got nothing to worry about, don't look, don't pay attention. Absolutely not. We're gonna make noise when we see injustice happening and when we see state leaders make excuses as to why they can't do the right thing. The fact is that while the state legislature is far behind in terms of mustering up the political will to make significant progress on important issues, there is a core group of progressive state legislators who are fighting every single day for justice, for equality, and for a livable future. Their numbers are way too few, and they need backup ASAP. We also need to have their backs and keep the pressure up for their colleagues on the outside to make sure that they know that we're watching. Scorecards are powerful tools, and there are thousands of bills that get voted on in the California State Legislature every single year. Scorecards narrow the list down to what you care about and show you the voting records. They show you who's doing the right thing consistently and who is actively stalling progress. Make sure that you know who those people are. Give them a call, let them know your thoughts. Make sure that you know what your state assembly member and state senators' scores are on the Courage score, and give them a call. Let them know if you have their back, if they have a 100% score, or if they have a low score. Ask them to explain to you why they couldn't vote on certain bills. Use this as a tool to hold them accountable for their actions, to the votes that they took that are on record. When it comes time for them to run for re-election, when they ask for your support, when someone new is running. Make sure that you know who these people are and where they're at on the issues that matter to you and your life and the people that you love. Because if they're not there, we can vote them out. We've got a lot of work to do in California, and on the climate crisis, the time to act was yesterday. California Environmental Voters is asking for the state legislature and the governor to prioritize cleaning up toxic pollution, accelerating the adoption of clean energy, creating family-sustaining union jobs for people in sectors that reduce pollution and address climate, to end our dependence on fossil fuels, to massively expand access to clean cars, clean trucks, and public transit, to prevent wildfires, to make sure that our state and our communities are resilient to the climate crisis, and to deliver on the promise of clean drinking water and making sure that we're protecting our precious water resources. And also to protect the outdoors and make sure that every person in California has access to nature. And to hold corporations accountable for their contribution to pollution. And this year, California Environmental Voters is sponsoring a bill, SB 260, the Climate Corporate Accountability Act, one of the bills on the Courage Scorecard. This bill would require the largest, most profitable corporations to publicly disclose their entire greenhouse gas footprint. We're asking for SB 260 to be signed into law this year. We need corporate accountability if we're going to achieve climate justice. And we need accountability for our state leaders if we're going to achieve climate justice. And that is why we're here today to highlight the importance and the intersectionality of the Courage Scorecard across every important progressive issue. And it shows how California did on these wide range of issues that all of us care about. If you're interested in a deep dive on environmental issues, California Environmental Voters is releasing our annual scorecard next week. So stay tuned for that. But for now, use the Courage Scorecard. Make that call to your state legislators. Make sure they know you're watching. Make sure that they know the issues that you want to see action on.
Thank you, Melissa. Just as your vote matters when an election time comes, the votes of your state legislators matter as well. It is Courage California's mission to hold our representatives to account in order to ensure that California's elected officials act with courage and deliver for our communities. All Californians deserve a democracy that is progressive, equitable, and truly representative of our people. The status quo is not working for most Californians, and we can't afford for people to keep struggling like this and to disengage. Elected leaders must have the courage to do their jobs and actually solve the many issues that we face. And Californians must, in turn, act on reliable and accessible information and have the courage to hold our elected officials accountable when they are not representing us. This includes voting them out of office when necessary. Courage Score plays an important role in the future of California's legislative process, our state, and our communities. We invite all Californians to visit couragescore.org to find out who their representatives are, explore their courage scores, and to see if their members acted with courage. Visitors to couragescore.org will be able to see the scorecards of our many issue-based partner organizations and discover how much the oil and gas, real estate, law enforcement, and health insurance industries contributed to their state Senate and Assembly members. CourageScore.org is a much-needed informational resource and tool to help us unite for a more courageous California. Thank you.